Hey, you're not Cynthia. You want the riffraff in here?
You waiting for Cynthia?
Yeah, Cynthia wanted some quality time with yours truly, so I said, "Okay,
Time with who?
me, the
Oh, okay.
seashell,
Okay.
Emperor Phi."
I won't intrude. I was just got out here, and you're literally the first person on my feed. So
What happened?
I
What
said
are you doing?
I just got out here. I'm chasing police officers and all of that, and figured out to kill some time, see who's on the internet, and you were the first person who popped up. Probably because you just started your shit. You would have.
Why are you chasing the police? I thought they were supposed to chase you.
I was supposed to chase you. That's a black joke. I'm not gonna fall for it, bro. How was
Hands
my
up.
how's my mic? Can you hear this?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me
Uh,
all right?
yeah, you sound good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind? Since
Uh,
Cynthia's not here and this is supposed to be her stream. She's on Wizard Time. Well, Joe, we lost Joe. Joe, the internet killed you. Your cell phone killed you, man. You laughed too hard. You broke your phone. I told you one of these days you're going to laugh yourself to death. And you just proved me right. Good old Joe Cool. Anyways, I'll just wait until Cynthia shows up. So that's why I'm not saying anything or doing anything. But sorry, two watchers. We'll see if she shows up or not. So she wanted to talk about something. So the suspense is killing me.
Ooh, what up, homie?
And there she is.
Did you think I was gonna forget?
You're making Neurojack nervous. He was afraid you weren't going to show up. So
Who?
Neurojack, your number one fan. He's in chat right now.
Stop it. Hey,
Where is friend? Is what he was
did you
asking.
promote this in Discord?
I deleted my Discord, so that would be physically impossible.
Why did you delete your Discord?
Because I can only tolerate so much humans for certain lengths of time, and so.
Well, then how are people supposed to find out about this?
They're not. It's a secret club. We're like the Illuminati, but way more
Oh,
deep state and secret. And so, if you
I
find
like.
us, you get the pot of gold.
Well, since Base, Daisy, and Chuck wanted to be a part of it, don't you think you should at least include them?
That's what we're waiting to see. The jury's still out on all people engaging with me currently. So
Or you have issues with Base?
not yet. Uh,
Ah, are
we'll
you
see.
anticipating some?
We'll see once we start peeling all those layers back to that onion. We might
Hey,
find a
I'm gonna
rotten
put it
core.
in iFi's. I mean in TML's chat Discord.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, like I said, you can bring whoever you want. So Joe
I
Cool's
wish I
filling
could
in for
find
you.
oh, let me get old Joe.
Yeah, he's already been here. He was on stage earlier while you were waiting.
All right, I think that's it.
But then the police got him. They dragged him out of the car and started beating him. So I figured, we were gonna stop talking to him for a while.
Okay. So what up, Joe? So I definitely wanted to kind of meet with you. I was hoping that Daisy and others could come by and hi Yeti and kind of give input into it. And I just
Sure.
kind of wanted to discuss with people, what I have in mind when it comes to a Bible study, what I'm thinking we should do,
Hmm.
and to see what everybody else how they felt about it or whatever.
That's a mixed bag. So again, you got to know your audience before you
Well,
conjure up your plan.
so I wanted to present to you this one video that this group of Bible scholars, I'll call them, they call themselves the Bible Project, and they've broken down every book in the Bible, such as the way I'm about to show you.
Hmm.
So I was going to have us review it, see what you thought about it. Was it simple to follow? Was it engaging? Let
I
me
may
know.
have seen this before. This kind of sounds familiar. Is it like animated or something? Or
Yeah, I got it pulled up in
all
the back.
right, I'll throw it up there for you.
Yeah, so
Knock it out.
it's it's a little under 10 minutes though. It's over the letters of first, second, and third John.
And third John. First John is the letters of first, second, and third John. First John is actually anonymous,
Let
but
me know.
second and third John are written by someone who's called the
Let me know if you want me to pause it or have questions.
Yeah, I'll stop you if I need to interject.
language and style of all three of these works are identical to each other and to John's gospel.
By the
And
way, I think I have seen these
all of them
before.
come from the disciple that Jesus loved.
Sounds
Now,
very
that could be
familiar.
John, the son of Zebedee, one of the 12 apostles, or it could be another John among Jesus's earliest disciples, known as John the Elder. Whichever John it was, he's now in his old age and he's overseeing a network of house church communities that are likely around the city of ancient Ephesus. Now, from clues within the gospel and from these letters, it seems that these communities were made up mostly of Jewish followers of Jesus, and that they had recently gone through a crisis that motivated John to write these letters. He mentions that a group of people have broken off from these churches. These people no longer acknowledge Jesus as Israel's Messiah or as the Son of God, and they're stirring up hostility among those who stayed faithful to the churches. In fact, 2nd and 3rd John clearly address this conflict. 2nd John is a warning to a specific house church. There are people who deny Jesus. John calls them deceivers, and they're probably going to come looking for validation or support, and this church community is not to offer any. 3rd John is actually written to a member of one of these house churches, a man named Gaius, and the elder asks him to welcome legitimate missionaries who are going to arrive soon. He has to tell him to do this because the leader of that church community, Diotrephes, is acting like a jerk, and he's rejecting anybody associated with John the Elder. And so these letters give us a window into the tension and conflict that John faced in these churches. And 1st John was written as a response to all of this as a form of damage control. The elder assures those who still believe in the Messiah, Jesus, that God is with them as they adhere to the truth. And so all of this helps us understand the uniqueness of 1st John, which is actually not a letter at all. It reads more like a poetic sermon sent to these churches. John says that he's not communicating new information. In fact, almost all of the key ideas and words in 1 John come right out of Jesus' teachings in the Gospel of John. And so John's goal is to remind them and persuade these Christians to stay true to what they already say they believe. The poetic quality of John's sermon is really cool. He doesn't develop his ideas in a linear or logical way. Rather, he uses a well-known technique of ancient rhetoric called amplification. So John has just a few core ideas he wants to communicate about life and truth and love. And he's going to cycle around these ideas repeatedly, each time offering a little bit different of an angle or emphasis. He uses a lot of hyperbole. He uses very stark contrasts with simple images of light and dark and love and hate and good and evil. But don't let the simplicity of 1 John fool you. This work is deeply profound. There's a clear introduction to 1 John and then a clear conclusion. And the flowing cycles of the sermon in between these two don't follow any kind of rigid literary design. But there do seem to be two larger sections. Each one is marked off by the introductory phrase, "This is the message." And then each is followed by a repetition of images about how God is first light and then how God is love. And all of the ideas in these two parts flow out of and cycle back into these two core ideas. So the introduction is very similar to the prologue of the Gospel of John. It has echoes of Genesis chapter 1 and Proverbs chapter 8. John speaks of the word of life that was with God in the beginning. For John, the word God refers to both the Father and the Son, who came to bring life into the world. And so those who saw and heard and touched the Son are called we. John's referring to himself and the apostles who were eyewitnesses of Jesus. And so now we have a message for you, the next generation of Jesus' followers. So when the apostles share the word of life with others, these others are also brought into fellowship with the Father and the Son through the apostles. The word fellowship here is koinonia in Greek. It means a participation or sharing. When people hear the message about Jesus through the apostles, that message brings them into a real relationship with Jesus himself and into a real participation in God's own love and life. And so this flows right into the first main section. This is the message. God is light. This is the message of the apostles, that the God revealed in Jesus is light. And so, if people want to participate in God's own life through Jesus, they need to keep walking in the light, which is a really cool image, but what does it mean? It means for John to keep Jesus's commands. And that's hard. So when you fail, Jesus's atoning death will cover for your sins. And then once again, you're called to get up and obey Jesus's teachings. But which one of his teachings? John reminds the churches of Jesus's old/new command given to the disciples at the Last Supper, that they love one another as he loved them. Doing this is walking in the light. Now, if God's light is now shining through Jesus, then that means the world's darkness is passing away, which also means that God's children already in this moment have victory over the sin and evil and death that reigns in the world. And so that leads John to challenge the churches, don't love the world, because it's passing away too. He's referring here specifically to pride and sexual corruption. Likely, these are problems connected to the conflict that was happening in the churches. And so this leads John to warn the churches about these people who have left the communities and who deny Jesus as the Messiah. John calls them the anti-messiahs and deceivers, but he's confident that those who still know the truth about Jesus are in fact the true children of God, and they are loved by the Father. And they show that they're part of God's family when they do righteousness and when they love one another, unlike the deceivers who are generating anger and strife and division. And so this transitions into the second main section of the sermon. This is the message of the apostles, John says, that God is love. And so God's children should love one another and avoid hatred. Don't be like Cain from Genesis chapter 4, John says. His hatred led him to murder his brother. But for Christians, love is defined by giving up one's life as a sacrifice for the well-being of others. That's what Jesus did. And when God's children trust in that love for them, it changes them. And so John warns once again of the deceivers. This time he calls them false prophets. When they deny Jesus is the Messiah, they apparently claim to speak for God. But John says to test the spirits. If anyone claims to speak on God's behalf, but doesn't focus on Jesus as the crucified Son of God, they do not speak for God, John says. God's true children will center their whole lives on the crucified and risen Jesus, because that's where we see God's true heart revealed. We see on the cross that God is a being of total self-giving love, and that love is what compels Jesus' followers to love others in the same way. And when people meet this God of love, it does away with fear and angst forever, which is part of what John means by having victory over the world. When you realize that God so loves you, that he is crazy about you despite your deepest flaws and failures, that love becomes the thing that grounds your entire life. This love is what comes through trusting in the crucified Jesus. It comes through trusting God's testimony about Jesus given by the Spirit, and it's trusting in the message from the apostles about Jesus. And when God's love gets a hold of you, it opens up eternal life. It's a life permeated with God's own presence and life and love, and it begins now carrying on into eternity. And so this leads John to the climactic conclusion of his sermon. He says, "We know the Son of God has come, and so we can know the one who is true. And we are in the one who is true, in his Son, Jesus the Messiah. This is the true God and eternal life." Now, if your head's kind of spinning after hearing that sentence, and you're wondering, wait, who is the one who is true? Who is the one who gives true life? Is it Jesus or is it God? And John's answer is, of course, yes. John doesn't know any God apart from Jesus. And when he and the other apostles encountered Jesus, they discovered the God who loves us so deeply that he has chosen not to exist without us despite our failures. And this God is so surprising, so unexpected, that John's final words call us to keep away from idols. That is, to resist any temptation to remake this surprising God in our own image. To know Jesus is to know the God of creative, life-giving, others-centered love. This, John says, is the one true God. And that's what the letters of John are all about.
So,
Sounds
what, do
good.
you, what did you agree with it? Was it easy to understand? Was it
Of course. And by the way, I love illustrations as opposed to just, walls and walls of text. And
right?
even worse, like the old school churches where you just sit and listen to a sermon for like 2 hours straight or something.
Yeah.
Those things can just like really like, put you to sleep and make you lose interest in religion because it's just so monotonous and boring and stuff. And so I'm all for like more active in participation and stuff. So that's why I lean more towards classes than traditional sermons and such.
So,
But
the way I've always studied the Bible, whether it be in my Sunday school class or in the Bible school that I attend, um, we've always known what we were going to read prior to class. Like we always had the homework, whether it be in
yeah,
Sunday. And when we got to the class, we would have a short paragraph over the reading. We would read either, certain, but we'd have questions. Some of those questions would only cover 5 verses, within these
mm,
5 verses. Let's really unpack these. And they always led to really good conversations. I've often said that both of these studies are like real life panels. So I'm curious on how we can bring that experience to the panel of where we all know what we're supposed to have read. We all come together. We've all read this. Let's talk about it. Either you or I or whomever could write questions, just to ask,
hmm
just to kind of get the conversation started
sure.
and then to see where it goes. Like,
So before I venture down that path with you, I'll go ahead and share my personal experience with what you just said. So my personal experiences with all the churches I've attended and um, participated in has been kind of hit and miss. And so I think you got lucky and had more positive experiences probably than I had, where you said you felt like it was engaging and inspiring and caused more open discussion and interest, as opposed to a lot of situations I've been in where a lot of even these classrooms, and this is another gripe I have against the old traditional churches, is a lot of classrooms ended up becoming very formulaic, and so it felt like pretty much every class was like just read off a script, and up to and including even the way questions are asked and how they expect you to answer. And so they almost set up a lot of questions where it's like obviously only one answer, and then everyone just says the obvious answer, and then they all pat themselves on the back and be like, yay, we learned something about the Bible today. And to me, those always felt kind of like um, just going through the motions as opposed to actually like really engaging and learning and stuff. And
Right.
so luckily you had more positive feedback where you it sounds like you were involved with more like open discussions and interesting tangents and
Yeah, and
wonderful
everybody had
discussions.
different points of view. We could all look at the same scripture, but not everybody interprets the same way. So like
Right.
others
And
would view I would be like, oh wow, and it was just a way to lead to discussion. And me personally, like when he said, don't be like Cain, like in every one of my studies,
mhm.
particularly the Bible study, we now have to go back to Genesis and study that whole section before we can even really continue on, because we're going to understand how it's correlated from the Old Testament to the New Testament.
So, this is kind of the blessing and the curse of the Church of Christ. And so, I don't know if you've ever experienced the Church of Christ before, but if you have, you'll know it because in these classrooms, like I said, it's pretty well scripted to the point where there isn't a lot of discussion because again there is a correct answer and then they move on, and then like what is the correct answer to this question, and then you answer it and then you move on. You don't like really deep dive into it, or and there isn't
Right.
really much room for interpretation because that kind of leads to some squirrely conversations where it's neat when it's stuff that doesn't really matter, but when it's really like deep important fundamental stuff, you really don't want to have multiple interpretation conversations because like you may suddenly realize that you're not even the same religion or something like that, so you're like, wait a minute, what are we talking about? And so luckily that's the blessing of the Church of Christ, is they're pretty much all on the same page, and so there isn't a lot of like heavy disagreements about theology and stuff like that. But unfortunately, on the flip side of that coin is they also don't have very interesting or lively discussions about anything because again, there's like the obvious correct answer and then there's just wrong answers. And so it's like if you say a wrong answer, you get corrected and then you learn and move on. And so that has its pluses and minuses, but I can certainly see where you probably won't enjoy that sort of environment because, as you just indicated, you prefer to be in more freely open environments for interpretations and discussions. And even if someone did accidentally get something wrong, like everyone in the room won't sweat it too much because they're like, hey, you see it differently, that's okay, we all see things differently, so let's just talk about it instead. And so there's the catch with religion. It's like, where do you draw the line? And that's always the $1 million question that gets all these humans up in a tizzy about religion. So that's
Hmm.
something we can address it whenever we get to that point.
Right.
Anywho, on your animation, I have seen that before, by the way, because I remember I've checked out quite a handful of their videos. Like I
Yeah.
said, I love illustrations as opposed to just talking about stuff or just putting text on the screen. And so the danger with really good, well spoken animations is sometimes they're teaching bad information, but they're presenting it very well. And so it's like,
That's why we would be studying, we
yeah.
they would already see it. We already would have read it.
Yep, yep, yep. And
So
so, see, that's the difficulty of religion. I think ultimately with most humans is everyone kind of has their comfort zone. some people don't like it when anyone in the room disagrees on anything, and so like either everyone must agree with each other all the time, or certain people will just leave because they're so offended by this atmosphere of confrontation or whatever. And
Right.
so I don't worry about that problem because, again, like I said, I spent most of my youth growing up in the Church of Christ. So, like I said, I understand the concept of just, you know, studying enough to know what you're talking about before you go in and just randomly start guessing answers. Because
Mhm.
that's probably the problem a lot of people make when they enter into religion. Some people just walk in off the street and they've never read a Bible, and so they they saw some Christmas special on ABC once, and so they think Santa Claus is somehow involved with the Christian religion or whatever. And
Mhm.
then they walk into a church, and then they start talking to Christians about salvation and sacraments, and and what a Trinity is and things like that. And so that's where huge problems arise, because then they'll be just like overwhelmed with all the information. They have no idea what they're talking about, and so that can be a huge turn off, because then the Christians in that church spend most of their time just like straight up educating this person, which they may take not very kindly because they feel like they're talking
No,
down to
we
them
used to do
or whatever.
that all the time. We would have an hour class, and then one person had a question, and it took us all hour to answer that one question. We were all okay with that.
Well, like I said, it's different strokes for different folks. Some people are open to it. Some people are, like I said, they get so offended by the concept that you might have a different view than them, or you might be
Who do
correcting
you
them
think
per
would be
se.
upset out of the crew that would pop up? Who do you see would be the one that would be most upset?
I can make some educated guesses, but
Like,
people that have a history with Christianity and were severely
well,
turned off by
if
it.
we're not inviting people or promoting it, who do you think showing up out of the people that we personally invite besides Daisy, Old Joe, and Base? Who out of those four, who do you think is going to have the biggest disagreement with us?
I
And it's
don't
going to
know yet. I don't know these people well enough. I don't even know Daisy well enough to know where she's coming from. We've only had the briefest of introductions, so all I know is she has heard of that church we mentioned, and she has some knowledge of Christianity, and so I'm just curious to find out how much, and from what sort of perspective. And so that's my main goal, is sort of like an introduction to just any random person I met on the internet. And so and I know some of these Panelverse people well enough to kind of get a ballpark figure of where they're coming from. And so I still make little mistakes. Like a long time ago, I could have swore uh, Chuck had convinced me that he was either a Christian at some point in his life, or kind of like Christian leaning or whatever. But then he reminded me he has never been a Christian or whatever, and I was like, whoa, that just kind of blindsided me, because he always kind of talks that way, like he's
That's weird. Hey, Sarah's down there, mind
hey
exposure. She says
hey
she wants
Sarah.
to come up, but she doesn't want to fight. Do you fight with her?
I'll only fight if you're wrong, but if you're right, I won't fight with you.
Hmm.
No, Sarah, you can come up. I'll try to be as nice as possible. I'm not in really a debate mood, anyways. I'm just being
That's
chit
shot.
chatty with Cynthia. So feel free to come on up and share your thoughts and feelings. But
But
hey,
what's your experience with the Bible, I guess?
since birth, just
Not you.
my mother was Church of Christ, so
So y'all
she
don't have the instruments, correct?
correct,
Do y'all
because
speak in
it's not
tongues?
given an example in the Bible of using instruments. Therefore, you don't do it. Hey, here's Based Oracle.
Hey,
Jump on cam for me real quick, buddy. Just make sure it's not an
does the
imposter.
Church of Christ speak in tongues?
No, we only speak in English because we learned
Okay.
English.
So
Period.
other than high bass,
Hey.
other than the lack of using instruments, what is the difference between the Church of Christ and Baptist, or we'll say stick to Baptist?
Baptists teach baptism as optional, and
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And Baptists teach once saved, always saved, which is another huge problem. But other than that, the only major differences is like I think Baptists are mostly one side of the millennial debate, whereas Church of Christ can't ever give a straight answer because it depends on which one you ask that day. We don't care about the whole millennial debate because it's kind of hard to really know per se exactly which realm we're in. My final answer on the millennial debate is I also don't know and don't care, because all I know is when Jesus comes again, that's going to be the day of judgment. There's not going to be any like rapture. There's not going to be any like 1,000 years on earth or whatever, with some Jewish kingdom reigning or whatever. It's just going to be Jesus comes down out of the clouds. Everyone on earth dies, and we all go to judgment day. And there's no warning. It's not like, a week before this, an angel will come and say, hey guys, you got 1 week left. You better get all your affairs in order.
Right.
It's just going to be like sudden surprise, like, hi, I'm Jesus. And then, judgment day. And so that's why we don't worry or care or argue about the whole millennial debate, because
we weren't
millennial
having
debates can get weird really fast.
We weren't okay. You kind of answered my question and then some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chuck's here. Chuck is another one I had in mind for this live. I sent it to Base.
We were talking about you, Chuck.
And I don't have Chuck's Discord, so I just summoned you.
Hey, Chuck's too old for Discord.
You're never too old for Discord. Hey, so Base, I actually called this meeting tonight because I noticed that it was taking a little bit longer than I'm used to on getting a Bible study together. So I actually came up with a book I think that would be a good way for us to kind of build the structure of what we're wanting to do. And it's First John. Have you ever read that book before, Base?
No, not that I mean, maybe I've heard parts of it, but no.
It's a short book in the New Testament. It's 5 chapters. I picked that book because it's short and it deals with how do you deal with people when they try to convince you there's not a God and things. So it was an interesting topic that I felt kind of related to the panels and the questions we have.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. I had shown a video a while ago.
Did you see the video, Bio, that she just played?
No. I literally just.
You just missed it. It was the best part. It was talking about how God is love, and I was just thinking of you, Bio. I was like, Bio will love this part.
Bio.
Oh wow.
No, I didn't see it.
So it's an animated. It does tell the story of First John, and then I was like, well, because the way I study Base is before I go into class, I already know what I'm supposed to have read, whether that be in my Sunday school class or in the Bible school I attend. I already know what I'm supposed to have read. Okay. So when I get to class, we usually have questions, and we have open topics. Like we'll read 5 verses, and we'll have some questions on those verses. Questions pertaining to how could this relate into the modern times? Or, how could you, is something you're going through similar? Also, where was this at in the Old Testament? How does this relate to the New Testament? And some of these questions we can get through 5 or 6 questions. I'm sorry, some of these classes we can get through 5 or 6 questions. Other classes we only get through 1 because we constantly have talking about it, different points of view and things like that. And I thought, well, it's basically like having a panel, but in real life when I attend these classes. But I was trying to figure out a way to bring that here to the panels. So I got with I-Fi.
And what up, Sarah?
What up, chica?
You're muted, Sarah. Oh,
sorry, yeah. I was like trying to get to it real quick. How's it going?
Chilling like a villain.
Nice.
Did you see the video a while ago, Sarah?
Sorry, what video?
One over
She
First
played
John.
a video on the stream a second ago.
It's this group of
I just popped in, so I did miss it. I apologize. And then
No, you're fine.
I was like, I don't know why, but I've just been a little bit panel hopping more recently. Not, me, not often.
Well, you hopped on the right one. You're in the right place.
I think so.
It's called Project Bible. It's like an animated version of what they're talking about, as opposed to just people talking. They actually show what they're talking about. So I like that stuff. I love visuals way
It-
more than I do text. So
So are we gonna watch it
just
or?
play it
Yeah, can
again,
we
Cynthia,
review?
so they can see
Yeah,
it.
I can. Give
Awesome.
me just 1 second to pull it back up for you guys. I was kind of hoping Daisy would pop up, but we'll go ahead.
She's still healing. She'll be here soon.
All right, let me check.
This would help her healing.
Yeah, we're gonna pray for
I
her
mean,
healing.
maybe this will help.
We're gonna do some oil anointing and laying on hands. We're gonna make it
So,
happen.
this is called the Bible Project. They actually have pretty much done every book in the Bible,
Okay.
and
then I'll plug my favorites after she's done. Also, Bo, did you take my advice and start reading the New Testament before you start reading the Old Testament first? That's important.
No, I didn't.
You should do that. You should read them in that
I
order.
haven't read the Bible since then, to be fair. So
I mean, when you do read the Bible, you should start with
well,
the New Testament.
okay, then yes, I did take it. I just didn't do it yet.
Okay. That's cool.
well, that's like so. My goal of having these types of conversations are just to actually, answer questions that people may or may not have, about the Bible or not understanding something versus, and not necessarily, hey, I want everybody to believe like me, but just to open people's eyes to it. And it also helps strengthens my knowledge in the Bible when I'm teaching it as well.
But can I ask, Cynthia, what's the underlying goal? What would you like people to be? For instance, I'm not trying to speak for you. I'm just trying to say, like, you want to convert to Christianity, or you want to have discussion on the piece, like back and forth, we can learn from each other, or you just want to be a leader in a sense and say, this is what it means, interpret and question. So I don't know, but what do you want underlying of that?
I think the discussion is the main objective in mind. A lot of times when I meet people who don't believe in the Bible or who don't read it, they do bring up topics that make me think, oh, okay, I need to learn how to address this better. So for me, it's more of a learning. I'm not confident in my knowledge of the Bible to lead somebody to convert yet. Even though I can say I've studied it for many years, it's still Greek to me too.
You can go ahead and put me down for all of the above.
Yeah, we're gonna put you down permanent. Oh wait, this is a nice stream. Never mind.
This is bite.
So I love this style. This is a quick less than
the letters of
2-minute
1st,
video.
2nd, and 3rd John.
If you need me to stop,
1st John
let
is
me know.
actually anonymous, but 2nd and 3rd John are written by someone who's called the Elder. Now, the language and style of all three of these works are identical to each other and to John's gospel. And so most people think that all of them come from the disciple that Jesus loved. Now, that could be John, the son of Zebedee, one of the 12 apostles, or it could be another John among Jesus's earliest disciples, known as John the Elder. Whichever John it was, he's now in his old age, and he's overseeing a network of house church communities that are likely around the city of ancient Ephesus. Now, from clues within the gospel and from these letters, it seems that these communities were made up mostly of Jewish followers of Jesus, and that they had recently gone through a crisis that motivated John to write these letters. He mentions that a group of people have broken off from these churches. These people no longer acknowledge Jesus as Israel's Messiah or as the Son of God. And they're stirring up hostility among those who stayed faithful to the churches. In fact, 2nd and 3rd John clearly address this conflict. 2nd John is a warning to a specific house church. There are people who deny Jesus. John calls them deceivers. And they're probably going to come looking for validation or support. And this church community is not to offer any. 3rd John is actually written to a member of one of these house churches, a man named Gaius. And the elder asks him to welcome legitimate missionaries who are going to arrive soon. He has to tell him to do this because the leader of that church community, Diotrephes, is acting like a jerk, and he's rejecting anybody associated with John the Elder. And so these letters give us a window into the tension and conflict that John faced in these churches. And 1st John was written as a response to all of this as a form of damage control. The elder assures those who still believe in the Messiah, Jesus, that God is with them as they adhere to the truth. And so all of this helps us understand the uniqueness of 1 John, which is actually not a letter at all. It reads more like a poetic sermon sent to these churches. John says that he's not communicating new information. In fact, almost all of the key ideas and words in 1 John come right out of Jesus' teachings in the Gospel of John. And so John's goal is to remind them and persuade these Christians to stay true to what they already say they believe. The poetic quality of John's sermon is really cool. He doesn't develop his ideas in a linear or logical way. Rather, he uses a well-known technique of ancient rhetoric called amplification. So John has just a few core ideas he wants to communicate about life and truth and love. And he's going to cycle around these ideas repeatedly, each time offering a little bit different of an angle or emphasis. He uses a lot of hyperbole. He uses very stark contrasts with simple images of light and dark and love and hate and good and evil. But don't let the simplicity of 1 John fool you. This work is deeply profound. There's a clear introduction to 1 John and then a clear conclusion. And the flowing cycles of the sermon in between these two don't follow any kind of rigid literary design. But there do seem to be two larger sections. Each one is marked off by the introductory phrase, "This is the message." And then each is followed by a
Hang on, I'm sorry, I paused it real quick. Daisy, this is live and we were actually waiting for you. I don't know how to get in contact for you.
That's right, ma'am.
So let me finish playing and I'll kind of explain to you what I had in mind, with you in mind.
repetition of images about how God is first light and then how God is love. And all of the ideas in these two parts flow out of and cycle back into these two core ideas. So the introduction is very similar to the prologue of the Gospel of John. It has echoes of Genesis chapter 1 and Proverbs chapter 8. John speaks of the word of life that was with God in the beginning. For John, the word God refers to both the Father and the Son, who came to bring life into the world. And so those who saw and heard and touched the Son are called we. John's referring to himself and the apostles who were eyewitnesses of Jesus. And so now we have a message for you, the next generation of Jesus's followers. So when the apostles share the word of life with others, these others are also brought into fellowship with the Father and the Son through the apostles. The word fellowship here is koinonia in Greek. It means a participation or sharing. When people hear the message about Jesus through the apostles, that message brings them into a real relationship with Jesus himself and into a real participation in God's own love and life. And so this flows right into the first main section. This is the message. God is light. This is the message of the apostles, that the God revealed in Jesus is light. And so, if people want to participate in God's own life through Jesus, they need to keep walking in the light, which is a really cool image, but what does it mean? It means for John to keep Jesus's commands. And that's hard. So when you fail, Jesus's atoning death will cover for your sins. And then once again, you're called to get up and obey Jesus's teachings. But which one of his teachings? John reminds the churches of Jesus's old/new command given to the disciples at the Last Supper, that they love one another as he loved them. Doing this is walking in the light. Now, if God's light is now shining through Jesus, then that means the world's darkness is passing away, which also means that God's children already in this moment have victory over the sin and evil and death that reigns in the world. And so that leads John to challenge the churches, don't love the world, because it's passing away too. He's referring here specifically to pride and sexual corruption. Likely, these are problems connected to the conflict that was happening in the churches. And so this leads John to warn the churches about these people who have left the communities and who deny Jesus as the Messiah. John calls them the anti-messiahs and deceivers, but he's confident that those who still know the truth about Jesus are in fact the true children of God, and they are loved by the Father. And they show that they're part of God's family when they do righteousness and when they love one another, unlike the deceivers who are generating anger and strife and division. And so this transitions into the second main section of the sermon. This is the message of the apostles, John says, that God is love. And so God's children should love one another and avoid hatred. Don't be like Cain from Genesis chapter 4, John says. His hatred led him to murder his brother. But for Christians, Love is defined by giving up one's life as a sacrifice for the well-being of others. That's what Jesus did. And when God's children trust in that love for them, it changes them. And so John warns once again of the deceivers. This time he calls them false prophets. When they deny Jesus is the Messiah, they apparently claim to speak for God. But John says to test the spirits. If anyone claims to speak on God's behalf, but doesn't focus on Jesus as the crucified Son of God, they do not speak for God, John says. God's true children will center their whole lives on the crucified and risen Jesus, because that's where we see God's true heart revealed. We see on the cross that God is a being of total self-giving love. And that love is what compels Jesus' followers to love others in the same way. And when people meet this God of love, it does away with fear and angst forever, which is part of what John means by having victory over the world. When you realize that God so loves you, that he is crazy about you despite your deepest flaws and failures, that love becomes the thing that grounds your entire life. This love is what comes through trusting in the crucified Jesus. It comes through trusting God's testimony about Jesus given by the Spirit, and it's trusting in the message from the apostles about Jesus. And when God's love gets a hold of you, it opens up eternal life. It's a life permeated with God's own presence and life and love, and it begins now carrying on into eternity. And so this leads John to the climactic conclusion of his sermon. He says, "We know the Son of God has come, and so we can know the one who is true. And we are in the one who is true, in his Son, Jesus the Messiah. This is the true God and eternal life." Now, if your head's kind of spinning after hearing that sentence, and you're wondering, wait, who is the one who is true? Who is the one who gives true life? Is it Jesus or is it God? And John's answer is, of course, yes. John doesn't know any God apart from Jesus. And when he and the other apostles encountered Jesus, they discovered the God who loves us so deeply that he has chosen not to exist without us despite our failures. And this God is so surprising, so unexpected, that John's final words call us to keep away from idols. That is, to resist any temptation to remake this surprising God in our own image. To know Jesus is to know the God of creative, life-giving, others-centered love. This, John says, is the one true God. And that's what the letters of John are all about.
Yay. So, Daisy, did y'all have any questions or feedback?
I have many things to say.
I thought you would.
I don't know if you're gonna want to hear them exactly, but
we found your love God based oracle. It's the Christian God.
So I don't know. Look, I'm just being honest, which a lot of times people like and a lot of times people don't like, depending on the coin flip. But with that said, I don't know if what I'm going to tell you, describe to you, is my interpretation of what he, the reader, was saying, or if it's of him himself, meaning the work itself or him. But here's some issue that I had with that. I listened.
Okay.
It seemed to me to be a lot of woo-woo, talking about like this is the true God, talking about discrepancies between gods. I don't see any of that as material or good in a sense. It seemed very emotionally set and based, and meaning I found it to be sort of manipulative. In terms of, for instance, to give you a direct quote, the idea of we need to persuade people to stay true to what they already believe, that's such a non-sentence. Why would you need to persuade somebody to stay true to what they already believe? If you already believe it, no persuasion is needed. Also, don't let the simplicity fool you, referring to, I think it was John 1. And that to me is also kind of confounding. In a sense, I think it should be, and it is all very simple. For instance, don't fuck your neighbor's wife. Don't screw people over. Don't be a bad person. It is very simple in a sense. So I looked at it as sort of unnecessary complexion for the incentive of emotionally invoking those who are listening. And again, I'm just telling you my thoughts, but that's what they were.
That's why it's better for you to learn about the gospel directly for yourself, and it's much less efficient to have someone preach the gospel to you, and certainly for them to interpret for you.
Yeah, this is kind of what I'm saying. Yeah,
And so I could kind of
because I could
defend
see a
what he was
vagueness
saying.
in it, like in what he's saying, especially because I come from a quote unquote woo woo side, right? Like the joke is I'm the woo woo expert on some of those unusual topics. Regardless, I actually saw there was a theme that could easily have been taken out of that video specifically. I did see the a little bit of the, because I talk about this a lot with the wax and wane. He fluxed on that so much with every bit of piecing those parts together in the literature. And I come from a unique background, so I'll be honest, it has been a while since I read the full Bible, but I have read like of the New Testament, a huge chunk of it, and was a follower at some point. So like I have dabbled in different directions and understandings, and in a lot of ways have kind of come back, but in maybe a broader spectrum. So I think this was interesting, and I think what Oracle's saying is actually well put, because I feel, without getting a little bit more descriptive, and in some ways, I don't know, I've been listening to actually a really good sermon. I have been actually dabbling, and I do feel that they are making way better interconnections in some ways. So where this could have skirted around. I mean,
So
I
I'm
can
really
get into it a little bit more.
But
But I
what
do see
y'all are saying, because are y'all under the impression like that's the study? Like we watched the video and that was it?
No, I'm not under that. I thought that was just kind of opening the dialogue for us to talk about things. I don't know.
Well, it was like more so like the way I do it in we would watch the video and then we would all like read not today, but the video would be up just to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about. And then like the next time we met, we would have all read the first chapter in First John.
Okay.
And then just kind of talked about it and then dissected it actually from the word and not from the Bible. The whole video is just to kind of give you a preview.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Also,
and look, I'm not.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say also, there's very different quality of presenters. So some preachers are like really good at their craft, and some kind of suck, and they're a little, like you said, maybe a little too emotional in their delivery.
Well, yeah, like evoking. You know what I mean? Like the context, the word formation. I didn't like that. Sure. I'm just telling you personally.
Also, you have to keep in mind sometimes they create material for a certain audience. So this may have been targeted specifically for like a women's class or something like that. So maybe you feel like it's a little emotional targeted.
What? I don't know why.
Well, that's a fair point. I don't know that it was, let's say it was young boys or young girls or maybe young people, but maybe what IFI is saying has some, merit. Maybe it was specifically made for somebody with cerebral palsy. I don't know, and I don't mean that funny. I just mean in terms of I don't know who the intended audience was, but I don't think it was me
that's the problem with like broad style sermons, because there's all different kinds of levels of listeners. Some people are brand new, some people are very logic based, some people are very emotional based. There's just so many different listeners, and it really behooves you as the speaker to know your audience before you deliver your message.
Well, that's true. And let me just say, I think both have, a place, emotional and logic. So I'm not saying, one uber important. I'm just kind of coming from the mindset of what exactly was I supposed to take from that man, whatever he was, saying. It was sort of a bunch of vagueness in a sense. And then it was mixed in with, well, this is the real God. That doesn't mean anything to me. I do believe in God, and I think you both, well, Cynthia and I know that. I'm not atheist or whatever the fuck, but at the same time, I didn't like the whole, no, they thought that was the wrong God. I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think it needs to be that complicated.
Let me give you an example of something you didn't like. When he said trying to persuade people to believe in things they know is true or whatever you said. So I would give that as an example of something you brought up not too long ago about how people can delude themselves into believing lies for convenience sake or whatever, whatever the reason. And that's a very big phenomenon in life that we
Yeah,
all
yeah.
know very well. So that's
Like,
may have been
stay
part
on
of his
track.
message.
You,
Yeah.
you know, keep with the truth. And again, maybe it's the way he said it, but
Right.
Right.
you know,
It's
nonetheless, that word formation to me was like, ugh, like what kind of car salesman? We're gonna persuade you to keep believing what you already know is true. Why would you need to persuade me? Why not just reinforce?
Because
And
again, some people are very prone to being sucked into the delusional lifestyle of either creating their own lives or even following other lies. It's very easy to get pulled away or sucked away by some
Mhm.
it
spiritual
doesn't like
guru of a week.
The secret.
I definitely agree, but in terms of like trying to lead the horse to water,
Mhm.
right? That whole concept doesn't it this also the backstory of this influence the idea that you can't necessarily like you can't shove their face into it. There's a point where you can only do it so much, and then you have to let them follow it's like enabling codependency, right? This is classic relationship discussions.
Yep. So lots of differences, and that's why this whole process can get very complicated and sticky because it can very
Well, right,
easily
like God doesn't
fail
want
at
you to be
any level.
codependent.
Hmm.
But we haven't started. I mean, so we haven't all read the same stuff, and so we don't have the questions to ask. We just got an
Exactly.
overview. So
By the way,
True,
Sarah,
thank
I
you.
have no idea about your background. What's your religious background, if you don't mind sharing?
I wasn't raised immediately in a church setup, but I was put into like a Unitarian with the idea that my parents were giving us like a certain period of time to explore because they were both raised religious, Catholic and Christian. One side like pretty heavily influenced and the other a little more lax. Regardless, sorry, like
I'm
something was
getting
about to
lost
fall
no,
real
down.
no,
fast.
we're
So you
we're
had a
listening.
Catholic parent and a Christian parent. What was the other Christian parent?
Well, they were raised that way, not necessarily that like as they honestly they were considered old hippies in the
Oh, okay. So
60s,
they were
right?
just kind
Like
of
and
spiritual, but not religious.
yeah, but also like like they didn't, and even to this day to be honest, in some of our discussions, I feel like they're a little bit I don't
Okay.
know. It's an interesting dynamic.
And
um
Like, go ahead.
yeah,
yeah.
I just wanted to answer Daisy mentioned me in the comments. It's difficult to understand for those who didn't grow up studying it. I don't know if you're telling me that as if I'm that somebody, but I did grow up in a Catholic school, Catholic, I guess, family, maybe Christian, depending on which member you asked. And, for those who didn't study it now as adults, point being is I didn't find anything difficult to understand. There was nothing difficult for me to understand other than why he strung certain words together. And I would say if I needed to, if that was the binary, that I need to read, let's say, 5 more books to understand why he strung those words together, that to me is gimmicky. It should be very easy to explain, like in terms of what is the value behind what he was referencing in terms of, for instance, he said, if I'm not mistaken, that John is love. Now, to me, that's kind of wild because my understanding is God is love. And therefore, that would mean that John is God. I mean, that would be identity, law, property. So that's where, I mean, sure, maybe there's more, but why would somebody not be able to answer in a sentence or two?
Depending on what Christian you ask, some Christians have this concept that the one of the goals of Christianity is to become so like God that it borderlines that phrase where we become like a child of God, or one with love and one with the light and the truth. It's not claiming we are becoming God, but the like for example, the bride of Christ is what the church is. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and in our human analogy, some humans would say that, like, when we're talking about the old traditional patriarch home, the man is the head of the household, and the woman, is like a part of that man. Like that, the marriage union is so unifying that they don't distinguish between the two. Like they consider the wife a part of her husband, and therefore a part of his house and that sort of thing. And so I agree that sometimes our analogies may kind of backfire on us because we think it's like a one-to-one comparison. But again, like I said, it depends on which Christian you ask. But some may take it a little too far. Like you just said, that sounds like he's borderline on blasphemy, because any man who claims to be God is obviously blasphemy. But the problem is, the idea of Christianity is like, we all start out as sinners. We're all, fallen away from God. But the goal is to eventually return to God. And that's essentially what heaven is. Heaven is, returning back to God and becoming either one with his body or his church or his followers or whatever, however you want to
With
describe
love.
that. But you can become one with love at that point. And so maybe you're not God per se, but you're one with the spirit of love, the
Yeah,
essence.
no, I get you. And look,
And
as
that's
a
where the culture.
non-Christian, I agree with you. As a non-Christian, I agree.
Okay.
We're not in any
What
dispute, but I do find
base?
at
What do
times
you
words
identify
to
as? Out
become
of sorry.
salesmen-y. They become what do I identify as, Sarah?
He's the deist. He
If you
claims to love
do, I
God.
mean, I'm
I
not trying to, because like I can't say that I do
n-
specifically have a category, but I
I
can,
do.
outline a
But not to
little. Go
that.
ahead.
So yeah, I don't identify really as anything, but I believe in the words that I use are God, love, universe, all interchangeable. And there's many, the Ten Commandments. I agree with them. I might interpret it differently, and as maybe a pastor interprets differently than I fire a priest rather. But in terms of don't worship false gods, I would take that as false gods being social
Yeah,
media or pussy or whatever people put
like a
up on a
self-esteem.
pedestal. Money is a false god. There's
Fitness,
many
their
false gods
body.
that are sort of the placeholder emotionally to love for people, for many people. I would say majority of people, unfortunately. And to me, that is indulging in evil at a certain point, right? When you put on
Yep.
wars and take out little kids, for instance, over the dollar bill enrichment to yourself, that is evil. I don't need to be of any religion to know that is fucking evil. It's wrong. And
Yep.
there's people who could stop it out of love. It would have to be, going against those false gods per se, right? Worshiping love in terms, but they don't do it. I'm not saying none do, but unfortunately, we we don't have a very good track record in the world of that.
Yeah, there's a very disgusting track record of selling out and behind the scenes dealings.
Yeah, yep.
You know,
Backdoor
handshake.
deals, right?
Yep.
Also, Sarah, I forgot to ask you what your current religious beliefs are. You told me your past upbringing, but you didn't tell me what you are today.
Well, I didn't tell you too that. So I was brought up at some point in a Unitarian church. So I was, influenced on the Bible at some point, and because my parents did feel that there was so much good, messaging behind it. So
Do you
I did have
subscribe to the
a part of that.
Unitarian Church?
But then, actually, as I got older, I had a friend who was Lutheran, and I went to her church often. And then together we went to youth group, and then through that I read the Bible. Now, how much of it I've retained since that age, because I was like, 15, 16, how much of it was there other influences, obviously distracting. But at the end of the day, I have always taken that with me. Also, I have had my own personal experiences on, like, I could, obviously get into that in detail, but like ghost experiences with my friends losing their child at a really young age and having visions, experiences with my friend committing suicide. This is in the same year in 2016, and him actually like speaking to me. And I know that sounds crazy, but like actually what he said and like the conversations I had with my friends later and when they found him, because he started talking to me before they found him, that kind of thing. That has so much to do with my understanding and influence on where I'm at. It's like right now I'm wearing my grandmother's, who she bounced around in between baptism or Baptist and Catholic to Lutheran to just like all around Unitarian at some point as well. And she was a huge influence in my life and just what we spoke on and understanding a bigger picture. So as far as my exact title, I can't give you one. But what I can
okay.
tell you is that I pray. I prayed for a friend recently. I might pray to God, but it's a totally different thing for me, especially from what I've seen and where I've been. And I feel very strong in my convictions with that. Especially with where I'm moving forward in my life and where I've been. So
So I
I
think this
know
would be
that.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go
Sorry, I
ahead.
thought you were done. Go ahead.
No, yeah,
I
I'm
didn't know
done.
you were done. So I think this would be a good time to add my plugs. So I don't know if you guys heard of a YouTube channel called Useful Charts, and another one is called Ready to Harvest. And so I'll just plop them up on screen real quick. So both of these channels are great resources for people who are still trying to kind of like hone in on what it is they believe or what are the differences because they don't even know. So like when someone asks you, are you a Christian, and you don't know how to answer that because you're like, well, I've been introduced to XYZ versions of Christianity, but I've never really picked one, or I haven't stuck with one long enough to really know for sure. And so I would offer these as great little just kind of like snapshots of the big picture of things, because some people feel like it's so overwhelming to know all the differences, and like where do you even begin, and like what do all these titles mean, like what's the difference between a Lutheran and a Unitarian, or a Catholic and a Baptist, and stuff like that. And so anyways, Useful Charts is the name of the YouTube channel, who has all, I think he's actually a Jew, is the guy who runs the channel, but he loves to just chart like all the religion, and he spends quite a lot of time on Christianity for some reason. But anyways, he has like a chart for everything, including all the little different Christian religions and the origins and where they came from and all that sort of stuff. And then the other guy is called Ready to Harvest, and I think his name is Joshua, and he's really really great at just very objectively presenting information. He doesn't try to he doesn't even really ever bring up his own religion. He just kind of like talks about all the Christian religions very objectively and says, like this is what they believe, and this is, this and that. And so
Thank
definitely
you.
check out those resources, because
Yeah.
that'll save you a lot of time of just asking a bunch of people who don't really know and just are guessing half the time. And so I would check those out. Okay, and welcome Daisy.
Hey, Daisy. Happy to see you, Chicasita.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys?
I'm
Hey.
Peachy.
Hi,
Another day.
Daisy.
So Daisy, what do you think of our happy little group here of some Christians, some familiar with Christianity but not really sure yet, and that sort of stuff?
I
Where are you?
think it's very amazing, and I think that it's very needed, and it's all part of the process and part of the journey.
So go ahead and share yours, and then I'll reveal myself here in a second. By the way, Cynthia already told everyone she's a Baptist, so just in case y'all didn't catch that earlier. And I'm a Church of Christian,
I'm
but
a
I'll get
Baptist.
into that in a minute.
I recently
what?
changed churches, and so it's a different experience. And I went to my previous church for 12 years. No, yeah,
You
12
recently
years.
changed? What's your new
Yeah,
church?
I remember I had the issue with the pastor, and I left the church.
Oh, I thought you meant that building, but you're still in the Baptist religion. You just
Yeah,
moved to a
yeah, it's
different
still, but
Baptist
yeah, I
church.
love that church, and I now have I've auditioned some other churches. I've kind of been going to a particular church. I'm not
Interesting.
sure how I feel about it yet.
Okay.
It's
All right. Well, we'll
and
come
I've
back to
also
that.
done a Bible study. This will be my 10th year in the
Neat.
Bible study, and in this year we're doing the Book of Revelations. We'll spend the whole school year just on the Book of Revelations.
All right. I'm sorry I so quickly labeled you as Baptist when you're still in transition between Baptist and maybe perhaps a different church. So sorry, that was my bad. Daisy, what's your background real quick, or where you're at in life right now, just to kind of share with the group so they know where you're coming from?
Excuse me. My voice is going to go in and out a little bit because it's still trying to recover.
Join the club.
So bear with me, please, on that. As I've told you when you and I spoke a while back, I grew up mostly Baptist, but my mother took me to a lot of different Christian churches. And I had a lot of Catholic friends, so I was really exposed to Catholicism. And I think I've told you before, my mother studied a lot. And because I saw her studying and praying, I was naturally inquisitive at a very early age. I consider myself fortunate because I've always leaned towards seeking God. Some people are born with a gift of faith, and some people receive faith later in life. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is. That's above my pay grade, but it seems to be what I find. With conversations like what we're having now, and just running into people in daily life. Some people are just very inquisitive and they seek God's face, and they want to connect with God. Even if they don't call it God, they're looking for something to connect to that they know is greater than themselves. And I was like that as a child. Before I could even really talk or verbalize, I just felt like I was looking for God, but that God was already with me and watching over me. And I know that sounds, it's a lot. And it's to what Based Oracle had said earlier, that, a lot of people just want this to just be really simple, like a mathematical equation or a scientific formula where you go to point A to B to Z to, go through all the points and you're there and you've got it all. But faith, for me, faith is a different kind of journey. Faith is something that I can't prove, but that I experience on a daily basis. There have been too many things that have happened in my life where somehow God had his hand on me and kept me alive. There were times I should have died. God kept me alive. I don't know why, because I know other people do pass away. My sister passed away when I was 16 years old. My sister was taken from me. She had just turned 23. We had different fathers, so that's why we had a large age gap. And instead of that making me angry at God, I drew closer to God. But then as I grew in life a little bit, I did become angry that my sister had been taken away from me, because I always thought my life might have been different had my sister been around. So it's a, excuse me, I told you I was going to have trouble. I have to get a drink of water. I'm sorry.
Beautiful story though, Sophia.
I understand that. Yeah. I was going to say, like, I'm used to death. I had a lot of death around me when I was in 3rd grade. I lost a close friend. When I was in 6th grade, I lost my grandfather. When I was 2, I lost my other. Just like a string of through family, and we had actually one of the weird things was in my high school, we had people die every other year of some sort of overdose due to heroin. And then every other year it was like due to some random accident. And so from that, like as I grew older, it was friends, and then again in my family. So like my uncle died.
It's very traumatic. It is very traumatic when you're
suicide,
faced with that.
Really,
And it is something that you have to work through it. And I didn't work through my sister's death until I was older, and I realized what I had lost because of her dying so young, and I was so young when it happened. And it manifested in really strange ways. I started having panic attacks. I started getting depressed, just really strange things. And I finally realized I'm having to come to terms with the fact that my sister passed. And my faith did help me through that. But yeah, there was a period of time in my life I was very angry at God. When it hit me and I had to process, hey, I should have a sister to help me go through life. And she's not here. But I always felt my sister's presence, which I find amazing, because I just knew she was there watching over me. I don't even know how to describe it. I just knew she was with me.
I understand. Like
yes, but when as I got older, she didn't come around as much, or I didn't feel her presence as much. And I guess it's because maybe she or God or whatever that energy was didn't think I needed it anymore. But I missed that, because I used to have really vivid dreams about her, and I miss her so much. But back to the faith situation.
Where you're at now, particularly.
Yeah, where I'm at now is this. I was raised in a family that I was taught to respect other people. And you already know some of my story.
Mm-hmm.
However, even though I will give respect to other people who believe differently from me, I'm always going to hold on to what is right for me. And what is right for me is my faith in Jesus Christ, my salvation through Jesus Christ, my relationship with God through Jesus Christ, which I tend to lean on the side that, I go on that Bible verse where Jesus said, I and my Father are one. And that's actually part of why the Jewish people wanted to kill him, because he claimed himself equal with God when he said that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that Jesus Christ was God incarnate in the flesh, born of a virgin. I do believe that in my heart. And I know that when Jesus Christ came to this earth as a little baby, it was to bring peace. But the peace is for the people who choose to walk with him. The other places in the Bible, it might say things like that Christ is a sword and a divider. And that is true, because those who don't really want to seek after that light, they're not going to really be at peace. And they're going to be fighting with other people a lot, in my opinion. And I think that's what's wrong really with the whole world, because in large part, Jesus Christ has been rejected. You can talk about almost any religion, any type of philosophy, any type of, a spiritual guru, Buddha. And I've read it all. I've read all those kind of books because they intrigue me, and I want to learn. I want to know how other people think. I want to know what other people's journeys are. And I respect all that. And all of that is fine. People in the world who maybe aren't necessarily spiritual or religious will listen to that and will tolerate that. But the minute somebody goes hardcore on, I really think you need Jesus Christ, everyone gets really angry, really fast, and has all the reasons of, the gospel was stolen from the Book of Dead and the Sumerian tablets, and the Anunnaki did this, and it's not really Jesus. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that
who really knows.
Pardon?
Right. Sorry, it's just like with that debate, And I totally agree with you. Who really knows what came first?
Well, we don't really know, and that's why I say, well, no, I'm going to retract that. I know in my heart who Jesus Christ is and that I need him. The rest of the stuff I don't know about, and I don't really care because I have my faith. Does that make sense?
Exactly. I totally,
Yeah.
100%.
But I'm never going to
tell you what it's come back
less.
Sorry, go ahead. Yes, please.
I'm sorry.
There's no less than, I'd say, 30 times I wanted to interrupt you there, but I didn't.
Well, I will be quiet, and I would be honored to listen to you, sir.
We're all taking turns, so now
you go ahead. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, no, with that said, I agreed with a lot of what you were talking about, Daisy, in terms of, I can't even, I know we kind of went, you talked about quite a bit.
Yeah.
So with that said, I didn't even have a specific point right now. I was just going to tell you, I don't know if we're going to, have some back and forth or whatnot, but the reason I said there's no less than 30 points is that although I agree with a lot of what you're saying, there's a whole lot that I would question of what you're saying. And I'm not saying that you are wrong or that I disagree with you. I would want to ask to further understand, but it was sort of a lot of, again, I don't know the structure of this format, this, quality time, but it was sort of a lot of gish galloping in terms of if we were having a back and forth, we've gone 30 points beyond what I wanted to get into there.
I agree with you. And because for me, it's very simple, yet it's also very complex because it is a journey for me. And I know that I go back and forth a lot.
So
because it's hard to explain.
Yeah, let's
can we stop
there for a second?
So when you say it's very simple but very complex, I think that it is in faith. It is in what I believe to be God, which I had referenced earlier, love, the universe, all interchangeable. But I know these words have very different meanings to very many people. Yep. But with that said, I think it is actually all very simple. And when I say very simple, I mean extremely simple. And I think it's actually a problem when people overcomplicate what Jesus is, what God is. Not only is it unnecessary, and again, this is my purview, the way that I'm looking at what you're saying, but I think that overcomplication leads to things that are really obfuscating from what love actually is.
And like you said, Base, there's a lot to unpack there, and unfortunately, Daisy opened up the can of worms way before we're ready. So,
well, I think we'll
get to that soon enough. But go ahead, Cynthia.
So also, this was something I approached I-Fi with, like, let's just have a powwow. Let's just figure out who's all interested. Or do we even want to gain the same information? I'm just here to have conversations. As I said, Base earlier, I'm not here to convert anybody. I'm not here to convince you.
That's my job.
I'm not here seeking because I'm lost. I just can't imagine anybody that I see every day on a panel or that I speak with have questions about the Bible and not have these conversations with me.
Yeah.
Because this is something that is so near and dear to my heart. Like, I would be a bad person of the Bible if I didn't share it with the people I spent time with. I've obviously sat on panels with Ezra and I-Fi. Daisy and I, we've had our back and forth, but we've been super close for over a year now, Daisy. And then, of course, I've recently met Base. And I know that Chuck had some questions, had wanted this as well.
So, and I think you can see how already the room is starting to get a little crowded. And so that's why I wanted the format to be very, very
this isn't cozy. The format. This is just the powwow. And what I had brought to the table was, let's just start with 1 John, the first chapter. It's only 10 verses total. And everyone go and do their own reading, their own research, their own deep dive into it. It does touch on that whole, we are the Father, we are Jesus. And also talks about, don't deceive yourself and think that you're without sin. And then come back and have conversations over these 10 verses.
I would be happy to jump on one of your panels, Cynthia.
And
So
doing that.
I think as far as my channel is concerned, the reason why I said I'm just going to have Daisy co-host for a little while is because I basically wanted to kind of wipe the slate clean and to kind of start over with the panel verse, because I really don't want to get back into that realm. But anyways,
Okay.
I'm all for open conversations and open panels, but you can also see how problematic it gets. Like right now, if there were not 9
no, there's
people
no
in the room-
structure, so
I'm
it's
problematic.
problematic because there was no
it's not any one person. It's the
No, it's
number
not
of
a-
people.
it's not a
like if
person,
there's 9
I'm
people that have
joking, but
useful,
serious.
useful
Based and I are like
contributions.
the black sheep.
no.
Can
there's
can
no-
I
like,
can-
this
can-
thought-
yeah, can I ask another meta question to have an understanding of what I-Fi and Cynthia's intent is, so that I could approach this more genuinely in better faith?
Sure.
So I have so is it, I mean, first question, is it Cynthia and I-Fi, the two of you would like to run this Bible study? Am I saying that right? Is that it?
No, this was more of a Cynthia had asked me if I would be interested in doing some sort of co-partnered Bible study.
Yeah, I don't mean today, right now. I just mean what you're talking about, right? Cynthia's talking about doing these verses.
Like regular.
Right. Okay. So it's the two of you, and so I know you said you wanted to have discussion, right? So in theory, we would read these books,
scriptures, and
scriptures,
then come back and share our thoughts
and then
feelings
we'd come back and all talk about individually and then together. I mean, in terms of back and forth, how we interpreted those works that we read. Is that correct?
Yes. If what you agreed with, what you didn't understand.
Okay.
And even though we all read the same thing, we would have different interpretations of it.
Yeah.
And that's completely different than like my regularly scheduled co-host with Daisy. The thing I'm going to do with Daisy is more of like a he said, she said thing, where it's just basically two people having a conversation, and we'll occasionally have like a third party jump in, like random guests or whatever, who just have something they just can't, stand waiting, and they got to ask a question or whatever.
About the Bible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Specific Christianity, specifically, just Christianity, the Bible.
Oh, Christianity. Okay.
Yeah. Because the Bible also contains the Old Testament, which is Judaism and Gentile and patriarchs. But again, that's why I said just read the New Testament, and then we'll eventually get to the Old Testament.
Look, I will, but I don't know when that will be accomplished.
I've already knocked out 2 chapters for you. If you just
you
subscribe
have
to my channel, I've already knocked out Matthew and Mark for you. So.
What do you mean subscribe to your channel? I am subscribed to your channel.
Right. So if you watch my religion videos, I've already knocked out 2 books for you. So we'll be done by the end of the week. But anyways.
So
wait, all right. As long as you
can I hop in? Can I hop in real quick?
Yes, Daisy, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I think Miss Ezra, am I saying her name right?
Sarah's her name, by the way. You can just call
Sarah, okay. She might be interested in the book that I've been reading. And I've told several people about this book.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It has been helping me expand upon my faith. And I know it's not Bible related necessarily to what you all just discussed there. And I wasn't here at the beginning, so I kind of hopped in the middle of what was going on. But I want to share this book with people because it has helped connect some dots for me in addition to the Bible. And the name of the book is called, oddly enough, and you hear this a lot on these YouTube panels, the name of the book is Emerging from the Matrix. And it's written by a lady named Selene Terry at Abakova. I never can say her last name. She has written her life experiences, and she also as a child felt very close to God and was always seeking God and was often protected. She grew up in a horribly abusive situation. it's just, she writes about her story, and then in the second half of the book, she goes into how she connected to God and how she basically, with God's help, healed herself and came out of her trauma, which caused trauma to her body. And she developed several illnesses that she also was able to heal from, because a lot of times when we have trauma in our body, or excuse me, trauma in our emotions or in our soul, it will manifest as a physical illness. And I just wanted to share that specifically with Miss Sarah, because I have listened to Miss Sarah before. I thought her name was Ezra, but y'all are telling me Sarah, and I can't see the screen because I'm on my phone.
I don't mean to
But
call you
anyway,
out.
I just want to throw that out there for anybody who might be interested in a book like that. It's been helpful to me.
Thank you, Daisy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you can hear me, I think we do know each other actually from a bit ways back, and my username is Mindful Exposures. I have been, like, what's kind of confusing to some of these people that I'm talking to more recently. My nickname is Asra, and I used to do a show with Richie, and actually I think I know you from back then. Regardless, I think you know some of the things I talk about on the regular and what you just
Yes, I
addressed.
do. And I find them very intriguing, and I can relate to and resonate with much of what you've said.
Thank you. Good night, Based. I just saw his message.
Thanks for stopping by, dude.
Yeah. And so just like to end this, like, the body keeps the score, emotional warfare are some of the taglines I use a lot recently, which really does connect to everything we talk about, especially when you talk about God. And so for me, I have come back to it, but at the end of the day, like, it obviously I have a different perspective, but it doesn't mean that I don't, like, I have actually been kind of seeking out my little space.
Well, the Bible even says that we work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. And that indicates that it is a journey and a process, that once we come to the Lord, then we go on that journey and we get it worked out. And even back in the Old Testament days, there were there's Bible verses that reference, I want to say it was Jacob that wrestled with God and his bone got broken or something. But it's, there's just, it's a lot. Yes, it's simple. Based is right. Faith is simple. God loves us. We can be in relationship with God, but the journey of going into the depth and the richness of all the other things, it just brings fulfillment to my life and to my faith.
My entire life was immersed in nature. So when I have been amongst all of this and I come back to it at the end of the day, and where I've had some of my most profound visions or audible messages, it was when I came back to nature. And so every time I find myself a little bit too heavy on this tech side, I'm like, hey guys, I gotta go.
Yes.
Like, a few days and fully disconnect. And then what I find like so ironic in my path is that I spent over a decade as a sleep tech, but that's all EEG based. And my background initially was with a neurologist, so a lot of times it's with a pulmonologist. And my immersiveness, how much I was immersed, to see the influence of tech on the brain activity and on my patients as far as like their overall health. When you got down to the core of it, especially like it's cool being in Oregon and having that kind of core where a lot of people here are very heavily outdoorsy or nature based, even in their spiritual faith. And there's so much as far as diversity here and I grew up in Wisconsin, so I was around the Amish and a little bit of Orthodox, but a heavy with German Christianity, and there was obviously Catholicism and baptism, like I was talking about. It's just like a huge anyway, I'm going on and on.
I understand that, because there is a Bible verse that says The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. And I always feel very close to God when I'm out in nature. I think there's something very connective there. If you look at what our lungs look like, and then you look at the roots of a tree, it's very similar.
I need a proverb, yeah, where
Yeah, and
the lungs of the tree
and
are
the trees allow us to have oxygen, and the trees are alive because of the, what is it that we give off that the trees need? Like, it is
So
so
constrict and expand.
magnificent the way God created this world. It's amazing.
Every time
And
they
that's where
breathe
we
out,
have
we
to
breathe in.
And that's why I would say, like, you have to acknowledge in all of this religion that you can't deny a woman's cycle coincides with the moon. So until you can resemble what the moon means in the Bible, which we do understand has some influence with this polarity concept, right? Then you're not fully like taking resemblance to what nature's influence is directly with what you're reading. That's my only thing, and not to
I think
kind of come off
I think
strongly
it
with
can
that.
be all connected. I do,
That's what I'm
because
saying. Thank you.
like I
That's what I'm
told
saying.
I-Fi the first time he and I spoke, I told him it is impossible for me to put God in a box. I can't do it. Even though I do have my
Thank
core
you.
value, my
Too.
core of what my salvation is, and I will never veer from that. I feel like that God is just so big and so magnificent, and I just can't put him in a box.
It's beautiful. And I can really resonate in all my experiences. And I do, again, I find myself still like today, having a prayer and saying to God, but holding that with the truest,
I put them in a box for you, Daisy. There you go.
Anyway,
Well,
I really
and
appreciate this conversation.
when we can't pray, the Holy Spirit will pray for us. There are times, if I can't pray, I'll just say the name of Jesus, and it's I understand what you're talking about.
And I have gone through a
See,
fluctuation.
this is why men
come
lead,
back.
Daisy, because
Yeah, you
women
come back
lack
to the
the
center.
knowledge.
Who is the creator? At the end of the day, there's a creator. You can't deny it. Like,
Oh
if
my
you
gosh, today I was
give me
watching
a
my
theory outside of that at
hummingbirds.
this point, cool. But every theory, even in science at this point, goes to this, and they even said
Yes.
they found
Have
God
you
in
ever
science.
have
So
you
you
ever
can't
sat
deny
and
it.
watched hummingbirds?
Oh
Yes.
gosh, yes.
They
Oh,
are
everything.
amazing. That
They're
they're
so
not an
cool.
accident. There is a designer and a creator of everything.
Hover, and there's other animals that have those capabilities in different ways. But exactly. I don't mean to be rude, but I have to get going. I just have to get up.
Yeah.
And
No, bro.
I have to do some some stuff with the dogs. I didn't mean to say.
You can curse here, just don't
We're
blaspheme.
human.
That's my only rule. You can curse, just no blaspheming.
It was so
Thank
nice
you.
to
And I
be on
actually
panel with you.
I know it
God
is
bless
too.
you.
You too. God bless you as well. It's really, really nice. And I appreciate the opportunity
Yeah,
and
anytime.
feedback. And honestly, like, this is the kind of conversations I like, because we challenge each other. But
Yes.
and I do get a little bit woo-woo with some of the things I've been through. I just think it's
that's why
important to touch
I
on
gotta
that,
limit
right?
the estrogen on panel, because that's why I'm only letting Daisy on, because that's all the estrogen I can stand for one session. But we'll see. Maybe I'll let you on too.
I appreciate it. You know what's funny is I'm a 6'1" Amazonian, and hence my picture. I like to be out in the woods. I like to hunt. I'm a bit masculine, so as far as your estrogen levels go, there's a
Well, you still sound like a woman to me. So,
yeah, that's
anyways,
true. That's true.
but Cynthia is having a big Bible study group, so you can definitely jump in. And she probably is focusing mostly on women, and she probably just wants some men to show up to kind of balance it out or
For
whatever.
sure.
But that's fine.
Appreciate
But
it.
anytime.
We'll get to connect at some other time, and I'll be back.
All
Don't
right,
you
I'll
worry.
be
No, just
around.
kidding. Not like that.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Are you
And
gonna
Cynthia,
crash your
she knows
car
I'm
into
good
my
for it.
house?
No, that's weird. We can have a
Okay.
meetup on the Oregon coast. Come out my
Okay.
way. It's gonna be way fun. I have a house, like a beach house. Let's come. Let's go.
I like Redwood Forest. We'll make it a date.
Right?
Sounds
That's
good.
what I'm talking about. That's what I'm
All
talking
right.
about.
Sounds good.
Good night, guys.
Thanks
Bye.
for stopping by.
Thanks. Good night. If I can. Oh shit!
So
Where's my mouse? There we go. Bye.
yeah, click the button. So Daisy, now did you figure out how to contact me? I put my
Yes, I saw
contact in
that
private
and
chat.
I've screenshot it so that I have it for later.
Okay. And so that's all you got to do is or you can just like go to my YouTube page and just go to the community tab and just like type a message there or something, say
Okay,
hi, let's meet up on this time or whatever.
right.
I used to have Discord, and that was the only way I contacted people on the internet, but I deleted that because of all the drama. So I
Yeah,
don't
I
really talk to
know.
anybody anymore. So but
Yeah.
anyways, I definitely want to start a series with you and see where it goes. It may not last very long. We may start button heads, and I may get you in a headlock and
I
give you
won't get
nuggies.
mad at you. I
But
promise I won't get mad at you.
you can kind of see why I don't want to suddenly have like 9 people on panel and stuff like that because
I
it's
only came up because Cynthia asked me if I could, so I was doing that for her.
well, you're on my channel, and you're my special guest. So, um,
Okay.
Cynthia may be having a separate, like little Bible study group on her channel and or my channel. I'll also host it as well. But I wanted our thing to be separate and distinct,
Okay.
and so
Well,
it's going to be more just a conversation rather than like group therapy and stuff. And so
okay.
that's what.
Well,
So
see, that's the part where I'm so complicated because I
yeah.
have so many experiences that it's hard for me to separate it all.
Yep, and you already saw how like Based Oracle was chomping at the bit. He was like, "I gotta ask some questions," and I was like, I know, we'll get to that part later." But
Well, I hope I didn't offend him or make him more
no,
confused.
you intrigued him, and so he wanted to talk more, but he felt kind of like he didn't want to interrupt people or like hog up all the talking time, and so he'll definitely want to come back and just chime in. He may be like a third wheel occasionally or something like that, but again, I want to keep it as cozy as possible, so that it doesn't just get into complete tangents in 9 different
Right.
directions, and there's a lot of people that want to add something, but they're waiting for 7 other people to take their turn talking for a while, and so it's
Right.
like, oh, and so that stuff drives me crazy because there's when I hear something important that needs to be said, I will talk over people. I will just interrupt them while they're talking and say,
And I have a bad habit of doing that too.
so we get along just fine, Daisy. That's why you and me are on a bicycle built for two.
And
So
I won't get offended at you because like I said, I already know a lot of the Church of Christ doctrine.
there you
And
go.
when I was younger, it did upset me, but that was just because I had to work through some things. It doesn't upset me now.
I'm gonna reintroduce you to it and see if I can soften the blow this time and maybe get a little
It was
Jesus
pretty
loving in there.
brutal. Yeah, it was pretty brutal when I was younger. I was like, "What? Wait a minute. This
Yeah.
man's telling me that I don't know the Lord when I know the Lord?"
And he's like hitting you with the Bible and clubbing you over the head with it and stuff, and
It
you're like,
was
"Ow,
pretty
bruises."
brutal. It was.
But
But
anyways, I'll be a little more friendly, but I'll still be very strict and firm but fair. And so I'm not
well,
gonna
I
sugarcoat it.
generally work from home and sometimes I do have to go to the office,
Uh huh.
but most of the time I work from home. But there's a lot of other stuff that's going on right now in my life that I'm trying to take care of. So
Of
please
course,
be patient with me to try to get on a schedule with you or figure
it's
something
it's
out.
completely up to you, Daisy, because
Like, it
I'm
was just random that I happened to even get on YouTube because actually I was getting ready to go to bed. I was sleepy, but
me too.
something made me check it out, and there you were live. So
I
I
was
hung
just minding
around,
my
and
own
then,
business, and then Cynthia came barking up my tree. So I was like, "All right, what do you want, woman?" And then we had this little chat, and so the word
well, all things happen for a reason
the the
sometimes.
the Lord works in mysterious ways. That's
He
all we
does
can say.
indeed.
So,
Well, you have a
anyways,
good night.
whenever you're ready, you know how to holler at me, and we
Okay.
will begin our fruitful discussions about
We'll try
many,
to
many
figure it
things,
out.
including the first
Okay.
can of worms you just opened up. By the way, one of the most common themes that people object to Christianity in particular is why does the all powerful, loving God allow bad things to happen, which y'all just went off on the
Exactly.
whole
Hence
tangent.
why I mentioned that my sister passed away at the age of 23, and she passed away tragically. She drowned.
And
And
I'm sure that was very traumatic for you.
the
And
two people
you're
that
like,
were with her also drowned.
and so you're
And
like,
it was
what's this
horrific.
about?
She was living in another state, and yes, of course we all ask those questions, like, why do horrible things happen? That's a normal human question. And guess
And
what? God can handle it.
we'll see if we can answer
We
even the
can try.
very difficult questions. There'll be no questions off limits in our discussion. So we will get to all the answers eventually. But we're
Well,
going to
thank
start
you for
simple.
allowing me on. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to get some sleep so I can be
Anytime.
healthy tomorrow.
You know where to
So
find me. So whenever you're ready.
you take care.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. And that's the end of our stream, unless anyone has any final uh, things they want to jump in. Chuck has been waiting so patiently. Chucky boy, was there anything else you wanted to add real quick or jump in and stuff? And Cynthia never got back from her phone call, so she's probably going to come back and be like, "Where did everybody go?" So I may just go ahead and kill the stream now. She can find me again. We'll definitely have many more follow up conversations. But yes, Cynthia, I'd be more than happy to help you out with your little Bible studies and stuff. I don't care whose channel it's on, yours or mine. You can call it Chucky Boy. What's going
What's
on, buddy?
up?
So, did you
Well,
get all your money's worth out of this stream tonight?
it's a start,
It's a good start. We're gonna get there eventually, slowly but
but yeah,
surely.
I already knew once the panel verse got beyond 3 that it was going to get too much. That's why I didn't even hit the link.
I appreciate it because I was waiting patiently for my turn, and I'm the host of the show, and I barely got to talk. So I was like, okay, everybody,
And I just
share your
happened
life story.
to click over here and I heard my name being mentioned. I couldn't figure out what you guys were
Yeah,
talking
because
about.
you kept hitting me up and saying, "I where's your Bible studies and stuff?" And I said, "Well, I'm waiting on Daisy, step one," and then
Yeah, I remember that.
Cynthia jumped in line and she was like, "I want a Bible study." I said, "All right, you get a Bible study, and you get a Bible study, and everyone gets a Bible study." So I was like, "All right, let's do this."
But I was definitely content just trying to listen to see what nuggets I could pick up
I think you
because
also noticed that I was trying to explain to Cynthia that the one of the main challenges she's going to deal with is her audience, because the audience can vary all over the places, and so just this very small panel I had so much diversity into it. It was hard to kind of like narrow it down to a topic
just
to
stay
discuss.
like yeah, like Bay said, you hit 30 things in that 2 minutes you talked.
Yep.
Where do I start?
Exactly. And
And
even Cynthia was asking me about her church versus my church, and that could just go on for like months
oh
right
my God.
there. And so I was like, we can talk about that eventually, but like I said, at first I wanted to help her just get kickstart her little Bible study group and see if she has, some regulars that she wants to talk to about stuff. And so I don't want to like ruin it by like, immediately bringing up other topics of debate of like why we're different about
Yeah,
things,
lose focus of the original storyline.
because that can turn off a lot of people because then they feel like, see, Christians can't agree on anything, so this religion's garbage, and then they run away and throw out the baby with the bathwater. And so that's why I'm going to start very slowly and simply, and then I'll work my way up and see how many people can follow along and keep up, and then we'll branch into more topics. But anyways, Chuck,
That makes sense.
if you ever just want to, bring up your own topic and talk about something, I'd be happy to share my thoughts and feelings
Well,
on anything.
one
So,
one of my biggest things, the spiritual concept, we'll call it, I got a firm grasp on that. It's
but
the
do you have a grasp on the religion and the theism part?
religion is where, because I've been when I was younger, I was at I went to Pentecostal. I went to Baptist. I went to Southern Baptist,
Did
and a
you go to
couple
one
of
of those
others.
Pentecostals that like speak in tongues and stuff?
Oh, yes. Drove me absolutely nuts.
Because that's a trip. I've been to one of
That
those.
between that and the music, it
Yeah,
was
it's interesting.
it.
It's an experience that everyone should try at least once to see what it's
Oh,
about.
I tried it. Now, mind you, this was when I was late teens. When I was
Yeah,
teenager,
so it was probably very
and
entertaining.
then I spent the next from 20 to 40, roughly, being an alcoholic. So it wasn't
Sure.
until I was 40 and was able to quit drinking because of a spiritual experience that I always knew just from my mom and dad, that there was a creator or a God out there.
And
They
maybe he
were
was
not,
looking out for you a couple of times when you know that
oh,
you
more
should have been done
more
in.
than a couple, more than a couple. I can look back and count quite a few. But
So,
mom and dad never believed in organized religion.
oh, my dad was
So,
an atheist, so
oh
join the club.
wow. So,
Yeah. So,
and after I found my way to my salvation, so to speak,
hmm
I tried a couple of tried going back to churches again, and it it felt icky to me. I don't know how else to put it.
it felt like you didn't quite belong because of the weird stuff they were laying
Well,
down on
that
you.
or the fact that they were being so demanding right off the bat
Mm.
instead of taking the approach that you're taking of trying to walk people through it.
hmm
They were demanding that you do these things right off the bat. And whoa, don't scare me off already. But
Yeah,
they
yeah.
managed to.
Some people are
I
in a
even
big hurry, so they don't want to take it slowly or properly.
and then I tried a couple of denoms, denominational churches.
hmm Those are the best kind.
Not the ones I went to.
Well, the
You
ones I go
might as well
to are.
you might as well have called them the Church of Talcott
Oh,
because
those aren't
they were
churches.
take
Those are just social clubs.
they were taking pieces of the Bible,
hmm
taking pieces of the Hinduism,
Ugh.
taking pieces of the Zao or whatever however you say his name.
Zionism, like
Y-
Judaism.
No,
Oh,
the
the Tao Te
Buddhist.
Ching, Taoist.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. You cannot just pick and choose the pieces you like and disregard the rest.
Yeah,
It
every
made
time
no
someone
sense.
says Unitarianism or something like that, my skin crawls because I get so tired of hearing people trying to just combine everything and
Yes,
kumbaya their way through religion.
exactly. And
That's that.
I don't have a blueprint and I don't have a secret code that tells me who's right and who's wrong.
But you
But I
also
do
know that there's truth and bullshit, though, and you know what both of those
exactly.
feel like.
I got bullshit filters, yeah, built
Okay,
in
that'll come in handy because
because
you'll hear about certain religions that are obviously run by like scam artists and stuff, so you can immediately be like, no, thank you, I'm not that dumb.
oh, my
And so
mother-in-law belonged to one of them that was run by nothing but a true scam artist.
they're big business. I mean, some of them have been going on for hundreds of years, so it just depends
Exactly.
on which group you run into. But
But
anywho,
I definitely come with an open mind and an open heart. I'm
but
not here to.
but but keep your bullshit filters just in case we need them for uh you know
Well,
deciphering information.
that's one of the reasons I had so much trouble with Mr. Jack was
He probably means well, but he's probably was never given proper guidance himself throughout
I
life, and
think
he
I think he does mean well, but he's one of those that wants to take the good parts out of each section
Yeah.
and make it one.
He probably has one of those coexist stickers on his bumper car or something, like on the bumper on his car. It's like, just kumbaya your way through life because it's all about, communal hair
Well, and then
braiding.
the other issue I had was he said it before in the past. I've known Jack for 2 years now online, where he said, "I'm following the the way that Jesus walked in the Bible, therefore I can become." And I'm like, ooh, I have a little trouble with that one. I mean, I know a little
Yeah.
bit about the Bible.
I don't like it when people
Y-
claim to be Jesus. That always sets off one of my red flags. So, and
Run.
Rocky even showed up.
You run as fast as you can when you hear that.
That, or
And
at
I'm
least
not,
point them out to others because I don't want others to fall for that trick either. Because that's where cults
but
get
I wanted to
started.
give you kudos and hope to learn more from you.
Oh yeah. That is the purpose. So that's why I have removed all the drama, and I'm not even going to waste my time on politics for a while.
That's
And
why I've left a lot of shows I used to go to. I'm
yep,
tired of it.
yep, it gets old real fast. And so I'm sure it's entertaining to some, but I'd rather get productive, useful things done with my life. So me and Daisy are
Yeah,
going to talk about religion for a while, and who knows, maybe Cynthia will have a Bible study, and maybe even Based Oracle will show up and ask lots of questions, which I hope so,
yeah.
because that's the signs of someone seeking truth.
And
Lots
I
of
don't want
questions.
to, and I'm not here just to bash on what another believes.
That's my job.
You know,
I'm the destroyer of sacred cows. That's how we know which one is the true one.
ah, I didn't bring no cow. Sorry.
It's called the process of elimination. If you slay all of the sacred cows, the true one can't be slain and will remain the only one
I
in
brought
existence.
I brought a blank whiteboard for you to try to fill it in.
Sounds good. I'll give it my
Uh,
best.
all righty. Well, I'll let you go because I think you said something about you want to go to bed anyway, and it's getting late.
It is getting a little bit late, and I gotta put the kid to bed and stuff. So, but I will be doing a regular series once Daisy's all fully healed up, and
Get things ironed out. Yeah.
uh huh. And then who knows? I may have like reoccurring guests that just so much enjoy the exchange that we can create a whole separate show or series or
Or
something. But
yeah,
I'm just
maybe you bring them up one or two at a time as opposed
yeah.
to
Instead
five or
of the
six.
usual open panel, 10 people trying to talk all at the same time and then doing like 20 tangents in all different directions and like no one knows what the topic is anymore. And so it's like
Yeah,
it's
I think that's
very
what happened to
frustrating.
Base. He had 30 things, but he couldn't remember what they were because they went so fast
And there was 5 other people waiting to take their turn
to
talking.
speak.
So
Exactly. All right, I'll let you go and you have a good night, brother.
all right, well I'll be around, so be sure to check back and
I sure
finally
will.
find the truth. We'll get there eventually, one way
All
or
right,
the other.
thank you.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
Mm.
Later on. And that was a quality time with Cynthia and friends, which, interestingly enough, debuted Daisy's miraculous recovery. And so, see, if you pray to the one true God, good things can happen. And so she's been healed, and her voice is just as raspy as mine. And so, I think we're gonna make a fun little uh, talk show co-hosts, and we're gonna do the he said she said format, and she'll get her time to speak her piece, and then I'll get to berate her and all that sort of stuff, and we'll just pick each other apart until one of us figures out the truth, the easy way or the hard way. Looking forward to it, Daisy. You know where to find me. You know how to get a hold of me. Cynthia, like I said before, I'm game for any Bible studies you have or just general religion topic streams that you want to have. I'm trying to avoid the dog piled, multi panel verse drama panels. So if that starts kicking off, you'll probably see me just slip out the back while all the noise gets started. But in the meantime, I'm game for just these cozy little conversations about stuff, including any topic. If you just want to compare religions and stuff like that, we can do that. If you just want to do a little Bible study, read a verse, and then talk about our thoughts and feelings, and have like Based Oracle jump in and ask questions, we can do that as well. That sounds all productive and good. So I'm game. Hit me up. You know where to find me. Everyone else, have a good night. God bless, and I will see you next time.